Okay, awesome. So here we are. So today we'll be looking at how we can understand MuleSoft. If you
Mhm.
already have the Java development as a background, right? You have Java and front end as a like a full stack developer background, and how you would like to understand MuleSoft, and we'll make efforts to make sure that you understand MuleSoft as much as you can. So this will be an interactive session where you will be asking questions from your perspective. And being in MuleSoft for more than 5 to 6 years, I will be explaining you the MuleSoft technology ecosystem and try to clarify your answers. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start with the basic question. What exactly do you think of MuleSoft?
MuleSoft, it will allow us to, fully, develop the APIs and deploy it in the cloud, basically, right? And also it will scale up your application based on the business.
Yeah, that is correct. So, if you go in depth, if there are many other platforms and tools and technologies that are doing the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but why do we have to consider MuleSoft, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the first point to consider MuleSoft is it is very it has the quality and fastness to solve the solutions. It's easy to use, and it's also compatible for many of the business problems that we are facing around the world, like mostly the data formats issue, the transformation issues. It solves quite a lot of business complexities and provides a very easy methods to address them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about the pain points in integrations, what is the pain point you see in Java while developing an API? If you ask me, I would say I had to write a long pages of code, like huge code, maybe to develop an application, at least 10,000 lines of code.
Yeah, it like slower and that execution speed, basically the performance. So that's where it lacks in the Java.
Yeah, correct. So in MuleSoft, we have the user friendly approach where you can click and drag the integrations and develop them without writing much code. That is one beauty of this MuleSoft. So normally, as we discussed earlier, for to develop a Java application, a basic application which calls database and gives you the records and send it over as a response. To develop such a small application, it would take like at least a week, and then more to test, and then to deploy to prod and all. So all over it might take 1 month. But in MuleSoft, you can develop an application in a day or maximum 3 days, that basic application, and it can go to prod within a week. Even the testing can be done within that time frame. So how MuleSoft is looking at all this existing work in a different way, we'll look at that. So there are a lot of technologies outside which works with the APIs and interface applications, but MuleSoft has this capacity and capability to cover the entire life cycle of an API. It takes care of all the phases of an API in its life cycle. So when we say API life cycle, what all phases can you think?
It has initiation, like to start the application, we need to have a plan for that, successful design, and creating that, consuming those. You need to build, document your API.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good way to start, and it can end with the monitoring, right?
Correct.
So yeah, let's take this one here. So you design first, and then you build that application, and after you build, you'll test it on the local, and then if you feel it comfortable, if you feel that code is working as per your requirements, then you'll go ahead and deploy. Right after you deploy, you have to manage that application, how is performing, checking the logs, monitoring, and everything. Manage comes here. So this is the entire life cycle, right? So
Mm-hmm.
MuleSoft has so many products that covers all of these phases. For designing, you have to design an API, like the skeletons of the API, by I don't know how you do in Java. What do you do in as a full stack developer to design an API before building it?
So, see, that's where we have to create them, control it, like, consume it, and the API contract, the majorly the Swagger. So that's where you need to document each and every step.
Spot on. Yes, Swagger. Swagger is most widely used one of the solution for designing, right?
Mhm.
Similar to Swagger, here we use something called RAML. So this is a landing page of Anypoint platform. So everything that MuleSoft has, all its products starts with the name called Anypoint. So right now we are on Anypoint platform. A platform is like a platform where you can a play runs, an API runs, something runs where something is happening, right? It's a platform, it's a base, it's a foundation. So this foundation, this Anypoint platform is a online web-based platform where you can have your APIs up and running. Anything related to API happening will be happening in this Anypoint platform. So if someone asks you what is Anypoint platform, it's a web-based MuleSoft platform. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the Anypoint platform, which whatever is happening in the MuleSoft online, then it's called the Anypoint platform.
Can you come again?
Whatever is happening on the MuleSoft on the web-based IDE where you can see the APIs, everything, the nuts and bolts you put to the API to make it run, to monitor all the life cycles of the API which you perform are done over the platform. I'm saying, I mean, the place where you do everything, where you touch the API, where you design the API, where you deploy, all of those are done in a particular place, right? On the server. Even the servers are also present in this Anypoint platform. Everything is present in the Anypoint platform. Okay. So in the Anypoint platform, if you go on top of this here, and you also have all the products that are available in MuleSoft listed here on the landing page. This is dynamic. I mean, new product comes in and they will be listing it here. There are a lot of commonly used products that are listed here. As you see, there is one thing called product called Anypoint Code Builder. As the name says, we'll build the code just with a few clicks. And here we have Design Center. As we are right now talking about the API lifecycle of the designing phase, so to design an API, MuleSoft has this product called Design Center, and it is named as Anypoint Design Center. And there is one place called Exchange, and one place called Studio, Anypoint Studio. So Studio is just like an Eclipse or NetBeans, just a studio IDE, and MuleSoft has built a studio to design the MuleSoft applications, which is also similar to Eclipse. So it's called Anypoint Studio, which is on top of Eclipse. It looks similar. We'll talk in depth all of these, but we'll start with Anypoint Design Center right now, since we are talking about the first phase of the life cycle, right?
Okay.
Are you still with me?
Yes, I have one question.
Yeah.
So it's only for design, creation, and deploying it on servers. Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what else you can do with an API? You can do it in MuleSoft. That's what I'm about to arrive, right?
Okay.
So API is at the center. What all you can do, you can do.
So it's in the any point platform, everything.
Platform. Yeah.
Oh,
So we were talking about design center, right? So just like you do in the Swagger, here also let's go into design center and start designing. Okay. So design center, once you click design center, this is the landing page. Here you are three applications because I have already designed something. So that's why you're seeing the three applications. Else it will be empty. So to design this, we instead of Swagger, we have a language that's called RAML. That's MuleSoft. It goes well with MuleSoft, and also mostly it's a MuleSoft developed language. So if you click this button, create here, there are few options, right? So the first one you see is new API specification. That means you would like to write an API, design an API like the skeleton of it. And if there is one more option, it's called new fragment. Fragments means, I don't know if you are aware or not, but these are like small part of that raml that you can use across different APIs. It could be the security schemas, or it could be a commonly used types like employee type, person type, or customer type, or any of these types. They can go across different APIs, and you don't have to rewrite. You just write it once, and they can be reusable. examples, there are many fragments that can be reused. So you can also create a fragment. And this is a new async API. I mean, in MuleSoft, again, we are right now talking as a developer, but assume there is a admin or a business user, like a manager or someone who would like to see how the API works, or he has a use case. He would like to connect to database and fetch the data and give it to Salesforce and see if it works or not. So he doesn't have time to design, develop, and deploy. For such kind of people, MuleSoft also have this tool called um, new as a place, basically, where they can go and directly create, design, develop, and deploy all together very fastly without much hassle. Like, you don't have to have a studio to write the code. You don't need expertise of mapping and any logical coding exercises. All of these are removed. It's a simple drag and drop. But we are not going there. It's just an option available. I'm just showing you that there is a way that it can be done, but we are not going in and looking at this right now because it's not something which is being asked in the interviews or generally used. And we are not focusing that side yet. That's an advanced feature. And another thing is, you have import from file. Suppose you have a Swagger, just like you are saying, and suppose our organization has already having the design files, and they got the MuleSoft product now, and they would like to just jumpstart instead of writing from scratch. They want to jumpstart. Right, they have the Swaggers files. They want to start designing the API. In that place, they can import the file which they have locally. And there is one more option. This is called sync from the existing GitHub repo. This is a general practice. Again, organizations will be having their design files like Swaggers and all posted over to the GitHub. So instead of downloading and then re-uploading, you can also sync the existing GitHub repo so that they can be brought into the MuleSoft ecosystem. So far, so good.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, so let's go and click on the first option here, creating a new API specification. So give the project name and then choose the specification language. So I assume Swagger is OAS, right? Which version is OAS? In which version is it?
JSON. So JSON, it will mean JSON format.
3.0 JSON.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also choose that and start building. But most of MuleSoft developers and MuleSoft everything deals with RAML. RAML is RESTful API. Yeah, it's called RESTful API modeling language. So we are modeling the API and using a language. So it's a RESTful API modeling language. So that is RAML. Okay, this is not much different from Swagger. You will be familiar. So once you give the name and the language or a specification language, also you can use GitHub to sync that, and then click on the create API. That will create something like this. So for now, for this current exercise, we will talk about a use case where American Flights company would like to develop an API, right? And they want to design the API first. Let's talk about the complete life cycle of that American Flights API. Okay, so if American Flights API would like to design the API, they will come here, do the same steps, and they name their design file as American Flights API. And let's go in and see how they design this RAML. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how RAML looks. So on the first, we will be defining, it will be automatically populated, the RAML version, because you have already in the previous step, if you remember, we are selecting which RAML we would like to have. RAML 1.0 is the latest. RAML 0.8 was where the RAML has begun. So 1.0 is the latest version. After that, now we are talking about the API now. What my API name is, that is starts with the title tag and the API name. And if my API has any types, then types are the reusable components again. So here I have a type, it's called American Flight API, American Flight, and that type I have bought it from the exchange. So now we will talk a little bit on what exchange is. Exchange, just as the name says, exchange is a place where you can find all the nuts and bolts, or everything in regards to the API. You can find them like documentation, you can find the examples, you can find everything you can think of an API, right? types.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can find in the exchange. So let's get that exchange touch and feel. So if you click on this button again on the top, hamburger, then you have this place called exchange. This is again called Anypoint exchange. Okay, every product is um, has this prefix called Anypoint. So in the exchange, once you land here, this is like an exchange place where people can put their resources, they can consume, and either if you want, again, this can be controlled again. If you want only assets, okay. So this is exchange place. Okay. So basically, you'll see everything here. That is, this is like a exchange place for all the MuleSoft mules of customers and mules of users. So people can publish a lot of things that they feel others can use. They can publish that, and this is the place where you can limit publications to your organization level, and also people in your organization who are using MuleSoft can access to this and perform lot of activities. We'll see how we can use Exchange in our API lifecycle. So basically, if you see here, there is one API which is already been published. On the top, you see this name, right? REST API. So this is a REST API, and there will be others also. Like if you go to here and remove this check mark, see there are like many components here that has been published to the MuleSoft ecosystem in the exchange by a lot of different people. So here it says it's been published by a MuleSoft partner. Then this is a connector. We'll see what is a connector later in the development part. And here, if you see, there is a template, and it's been published by the MuleSoft solution itself. And this is in regards to the patient system API implementation template. Right, there are like so many things: REST APIs, templates, connectors, API fragments, right? So many things. These are all used in the exchange, right? So let's look at a sample one here. This is a REST API, and it is being published by the MuleSoft solutions. It's called Karen FHIR R for patient API. So if you go inside, it will give you all the documentation, and the one who published is responsible for providing this documentation. And this documentation, there are some guidelines and best practices on how to do, and you can also be free on what you want to document. So it says this is a MuleSoft accelerator for healthcare, enables healthcare provider to unlock critical patient data. So blah blah and all of this. And if you go to this summary page here, this summary page, do you get this feel of Swagger now?
Yeah, yeah, no.
Yeah, so this resource has this methods and all of this, and you can also test them here. So if you give ID and all these details, then you can do a sample test and send mock that API and get a response like that, and you can test that. So this is all what this guy has been published. So let's go back to our API here, RESTful API. This API does, this American Flights API does some of these functions. So this is all the exchanges. So there is one fragment which I have published earlier in the exchange, and I am using it here in my API, and let's see what it is. This is a flight type. So what my flight is, you know all of this because you are aware of Swagger, and it has these properties: ID, code, price, departure date, origin, destination, empty seats, right? This is a type. So I'm invoking that type by using this exclamatory mark and include statement to include that from the exchange. So once you include that, it will be sitting inside this exchange modules, and inside exchange modules, these are all the folders that has been automatically created by MuleSoft. How do you actually import from exchange? So there is this dependency button, and there is this exchange button on the extreme left, right? So go to exchange, and then you can click on open in exchange, or in the dependency, in the dependency you click on this if you want to import fragment, then you click this plus button, and you can search the fragment that is been already published right now. So on flights there are two, so you can just select and then import. That's how you import. Once you import, that will go and sit into this exchange modules folder. Once it's there, you can include. Once you type, right, once you have this include statement, it at the bottom, this is very proactive. It will give you what to write. So after you have include, I would like to include from the exchange. So normally, to while you are writing this raml, this gives you suggestions. Suppose I'm writing a new resource. Let's name it as test. So test resource can have what? So it gives following methods can be put, following document if it is have a document tag, or if it has a type or traits is type. So it's very proactive. Let's suppose it's a get method. Inside get, what can be have body, or is it a directly response? So you can just click. I have not written any code so far, right? So this is that fast. Can you see that?
Yeah, inbuilt code is getting for
Yeah, it gives you suggestions. So in this way you can design fast. So right now there is flights resource with get method, and I don't have to explain all of this because you're already familiar with Swagger, right? Once this is developed, you can go ahead and publish to exchange. So once it's published to exchange, it's readily available, that fragment. Now, which phase have we completed in the API lifecycle?
specification. Oh, in the
Design, right?
Swagger, yeah.
Design part is complete. Now let's go to build part. To build an API, as you use the Eclipse tool, here also we have a tool in MuleSoft, as we discussed before. It's called Anypoint Studio. So how does Anypoint Studio look, right? So Anypoint Studio will be something like this, which you will be seeing on my screen now. One moment, just a minute. Huh? So how do you feel this studio? Do you feel what are things you feel familiar?
Yeah, the structure, the build, everything seems fine. I think the modeling which you are showing on the screen, the interface, I think that's different. Rest I see it's
Exactly. Yeah. So this is basically built on top of Eclipse. That's why you feel a lot of similarity.
mm-hmm.
So the extra feature you have is on the right side, you have this Mule palette, right? So palette has everything that can be dragged and put on this canvas on the center. So how we will start development? So development is something you can start from new and Mule project, or here also you can design the raml and you can select the API specification project, and a project from template, and mule domain project. And, if you're aware of the domain projects, then you can develop that one too, and a project from an example. So these are all various options available. Even you can write a Java project. So mule configuration files. So there are so many, but to develop as a traditional developer, after the design you have to develop an API. I'll go ahead and select a mule project here. In the mule project, it asks you for the project name, and which mule server can you test this locally. So right now I have 4.4 runtime, so I've selected that by default. And here import a here if you see, import a published API, or import raml from the local file, download raml from the design center. There are various options available. So import a published API. So if you select this button, and there are two ways again. If the design API or the design file is been published over to Maven, you can get from Maven, or you can also start. Since we have published to Exchange, I'll say import from Exchange. So in the Exchange, you have to connect. Now you have to connect this IDE, Anypoint Studio, to the Anypoint platform. How do you connect that? Just like you log in into the Anypoint platform, you have to select your you have to add your account. Basically, normally there will be nothing here, nothing displayed. So you have to click on add account, and then just like you enter into MuleSoft, you have to enter the username, password, authentication mechanism, and then sign in. Once it's been signed in, if MFA is on, then MFA authentication has to be passed through. And basically, once you sign in into the platform, the same method applies even in the studio. Once you sign in, the platform and the Anypoint Studio are both linked. They can talk. Now I can look into Exchange now. So if I type flight, it will go ahead and bring me the assets available on Exchange in regards to flight. So if this is the right one, and this is version 1.0.3, so let's go to Exchange and see, the latest version is 1.0.3, right? So I'm importing the right one. So I click add and then finish. And once I click finish here, that will create a project. that looks like the API you are seeing on the screen now. That will create this entire project structure, okay, and give you this here, this kind of structure. So what is this basically? Whatever you are seeing in on the screen, what is this? What does it say? So as per our design, we have different endpoints. Flights is one endpoint, which has two methods, get and post, right? So similarly, if at the bottom there is slash flights and it has a post method, and there is slash flights and it has a get method. So these are called flows. Whatever you are seeing, flow is nothing but a flow of, just as the name says, the flow, it flows from left to right. So whatever the component is on the first, that will execute first, and then the next one will execute, and that's how you define the sequence of steps that the API performs. So basically there is one source name here grayed out. So that is called the source. Source means the one which triggers this flow, the one which takes the input, or with, or a trigger, right? Did you understand so far?
Yeah, it's similar to Java. So, yeah.
Yeah, so basically at the top you have this listener component, which will be the listener to your API. In the listener component, you have to mention the configurations, just like you mentioned the configuration tag, the tag in your code in Java. Similarly, here also you have this configuration properties at the bottom, and once you click on this edit button here, that will give you this window where you can put in all the configuration details, protocol, what protocol, and host, port number, timeout. There's so many things that you can do. TLS configuration, everything in regard to that listener you can configure over here, this part, okay. And once you configure here, that will create a component which is called HTTP listener configuration, and that configuration is again reusable. If you have if you want to use same configuration again, then that is reusable again. So basically this listener is listening to this configuration. And next portion is, it's have a router is the key component which talks to the raml, this raml, and the flows that we have built. So request came in, and it goes to the router knows, router reads the raml on the background. So what exactly router has in the router configuration, if you go inside, it is basically having the raml as a backend support. So it will exactly point to that particular flow. So inside this, we below we have all these flows as we spoke. Each method has a each flow. So that's how these flows are developed. And inside this, there is a error handling as well. Mule by default, every listener will provide these many number of error handling things. So one is bad request, not found, method not allowed, not acceptable, unsupported media type, not implemented. And not only this, you can also add a number of error handlings. And in the MuleSoft, you have two ways to handle errors. On error propagate means you get an error and then you terminate the flow. And there is one more method called on error continue, which means you get the error, you perform the action that has been put inside this particular flow, and then still continue the action which triggered. I mean, if router cause an error, it comes to on error propagate, it will terminate after executing this component which is placed inside this flow. And if it is on error continue here, so on error continue will look like something like this. See, on error continues here, right? If I bring and drop it here, it will be like on error continue. So in on error continue, whatever I will put, that will execute and go back to the original triggered flow and continue the flow still. Those are two ways, right? And then what exactly are you seeing in here? For example, this is called transform message. This is a connector which or a component which have bought in from the palette again. Palette has all these icons that you can drag and drop. So data view is core of MuleSoft. Just as the name says, data view or a transform message is another name of it. That means whatever the data coming in into your API, you can transform it into a different format, or you can data view. The transform message is the name of the component, but on the background it uses a technology called data sense, and it is also called data view. Means it's weaving the data, right? So far good, or is it complex?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So in the data transform message, if you select that, every component you click on this canvas, that will have some properties, and it will open here at the bottom. So in the transform message, if I drag it little bit higher, you have 4 sessions here. One session is here, which is on the left, is called incoming data. At the center, this is grayed out, but once you have some data, you can map them. It's just a drag and drop again. All the lines will be visible. On the right side, the output data, whatever the data you would like to output, the field names will be there. You just have to map, this guy maps to this guy, this guy maps to this guy, and then that will generate a code which you see on the complete right. So this is the code of data view. What exactly is this? Right now we are on data view. DW means data view version 2.0. Earlier it was 1.0 version. Now currently we are running on 2.0. Immediately after defining the type or the version of data view we are using, similar to rammer also, what does it has? At the first, it has the rammer version. In the data view also, first we are defining the data view version, and inside that, what kind of output we want to put out once the data leaves out of this transform message. What would you like to, what format you would like to have? Is it CSV, JSON, XML? You will define, and this is all the header of the data view. And after the 3 lines comes the exact data weaving code, like the message, this is a JSON object. Whatever you put in the JSON object, that will be given as an output. In the same way, you have all this message, resource not found, error message. So this is exactly the same object that will be given as an output whenever this error occurs, not found error occurs on all of this. Understood?
Yep. Yep. Got it.
Clear, right?
Yep.
And in the same way, you have one more listener, and it's called the console. So whatever you see in the console, right, you can test them, right? So similarly, it has console also have a listener, and it also have a router console, API kit console. So you might be already familiar, and most of the companies would not like to have this console open, because it's a no, it's it's a port open for the console call, and maybe they feel it's not secured and they would like to remove that. But MuleSoft by default generates flows for this, including this console in it. I'll show you what exactly it's useful for. And when you come inside, here you have all the data views and flow reference. This component is called flow reference. So this is referring to something else. So what exactly is this referring to? It says flow name get flights. It want to refer to get flights. So how do you go to that flow? Right click, and then you'll go to referenced flow. So once you click that, this is all implementation. Now you have to write this code. I wrote, so it's available. Normally you will just have a data view and a flow by default with the error response, sorry, with the response that has been provided in the RAM. So basically, if I click try it and then send a request, this is the response, right? This is the response. It will be exactly put in the transform message here to that particular call. So right now I've tested get call for flights, right? So for the get call under flights, there should be a data view present just like this with a message. But I have implemented this, developed this API, and I have put another file here. It's called implementation.example. Inside this implementation.example, I have mentioned all the implementation of that particular code, what it has to be done, right? So for get flights, first step I'm doing is calling select star from American flights database and bring everything. And then once I get the data which I'm getting out of the database, it's not readable format, right? It might be in some other format. So I would like to consume that data and then convert it into JSON format. So this is exactly the data mapping I'm talking about. All the fields came from the database, are automatically shown here. This is called data synth. The power of MuleSoft comes in here. It automatically shows all the fields that are coming out of the database. If you put a data view or a mapping transform message component here, it will automatically sense all the incoming fields and list it over for you here on the left. On the right side, whatever you want to display, right? Suppose I want another field in plain, right? Then I'll click comma here, I'll type here and say some hi, and then here something like this. Then this is right now giving error because I've mentioned it as a type. But basically, once you are here, it will whatever you would like to map, you just drag and drop, and that will generate code here. And this is the data view code. So if you read inside this code, payload means the incoming data, maps to payload 0.1, index of payload 0.01. That means we are mapping this incoming data to this. Like if there is a id, then map it to the id. You will get used to this data view once you start writing the code. It's not complex. So far all the business complexities have been, all the data transformation complexities have been addressed by data view. That's why it's a very good, greatest product from MuleSoft. So you can do all the operations that Java can do so far, except a few that are like extremely rare that I haven't faced so far. All the So far I've been working with MuleSoft, I've addressed all the transformation complexities using this data view. It's not that hard, you can learn. So basically you do that, and then there is a logger component here which logs the request. So whatever you put in here, that will log, and the level of logs can be addressed. So basically every component, what all it can do, that will be displayed in this properties plane here at the bottom, properties window. So once this is being addressed, this will give back the response to the calling flow. That is the calling component that is here, this guy. And this guy will give you back the response to listener, router, and then the listener. And that's how the response comes in. Any questions so far?
It's all, huge inputs, a lot of actually, but yeah, trying to get to.
You can relate to your Java world, right?
Yeah, too much input.
Yeah, and basically everything you see here, if you click on this configuration XML button, it will give you all the XML data. Background, it will be all XML.
Yeah, okay.
And this is not complex either. If you open a flow here, this is a flow name, American Flights API main, and a flow will open American Flights API, and flow name will again close when where the flow closes. And inside flow, whatever you have a listener, and a listener have a response, and all of this, just the code, same thing that you have seen in the UI. Lightweight. I just want you to make sure that you understand what a flow is, what is a component, where do you get the component from, how do you drag and drop, how do you develop an application from the design file. These are all things. Things have shown so far. Do you think, are you comfortable so far? Are you understanding any gaps?
No, this is similar to Java, so it's nothing difficult in that. Maybe the implementation it will be, kind of weird when we develop or deploy. But yeah, this is like high level, that's similar to Java also. Nothing.
Yeah. Awesome. Then if we continue, we have completed the design and development part. Now test or deploy. So basically, if I want to run this project on my local, I'll just right click and click run project. Just like in Java again, or Eclipse, you have multiple ways to run. Either you can click this green button on the top, or you can right click on the project and then click run as a mule application, or there are many ways. I like to do just run here this way.
Or you were building it, right? So you do a unit testing. So it's
Yeah. So in Java, you use JUnit or something like that. Here, MuleSoft has a technology. It's called MuleSoft unit testing. We'll see how to do that too. Every code that has been developed, you have to write munits also. That's a practice. Once this deploys, and once we test our application, we'll go to that munit part. So it's deployed. So here on the left, there is the console, right? It comes in automatically. This is coming up only because we have this extra guy sitting at the bottom, this console, because this is also having a listener, it is listening. This is an extra feature that MuleSoft provides. So once you click on open console, this is just like the thing you have seen on Exchange. So it's giving you everything and then you test it. But when you test this runs on your local, and in the console you'll get a response, whatever request process success. So your API is working up and running on your local. This is how you test locally. Okay. And to run the munits, every flow has to be tested. So assume you wanted to test this flush, this basic get flights. So you right click on this and then go to munit part at the bottom here, and then click on create blank test for this flow, or record test for this flow. So record test for this flow is a very new feature that MuleSoft has is provided. So in this, basically you don't have to do much. You just, so let's look at that. So once I click on record test for this flow button here, this will deploy the application locally, and then it records every single step that the API performs once it's up and running. It will record the inputs, attributes, everything, that its actions, logs, it records everything, and then gives us an option to what to mock, because if there is a database call, we don't want to call every time we test that, right? It will mock that database response and saves it, instead of we going and writing every single thing in the testing framework. So it saves that request, it saves that response, and it mocks that, basically the external calls. And then it tests the pure MuleSoft functionality, how the test transfer message works, how every component in this flow works. So that is the whole purpose of using Munits. So once it's deployed, it says, see, waiting for the input data. So it's waiting for the trigger. So now I'll go here and then again click on send. Response content known body, but recording stopped. So input recorded. Once the call is complete, it says input recording has been stopped. So now there is an option called configure test. This is what I was talking about. In the configure test, you give the munit file name at the top, and also the test name that you have performed, right? So right now I have performed the test for get method under flights. So basically it will populate something for you. You can go with that and click on next. And now here, see, it shows you how many flows it has, what there is a flow reference. So you can click mock this process, or verify that this process has been called or not, spy this process. You can do all of this and then click next, and then it will generate some Munit flows for you. And yeah, you can look at that complete Munit tutorial. I also have that in the YouTube. I'll send you that link and post even in the description of this video. It's like a 30 minutes video where you will get complete understanding on how to write a Munits very easily. Once you complete watching that video, you can write a Munits on your own. That's how easy it is, right? Writing and using a Munits. You good so far?
Yes.
Okay, now we have completed what all the design, build, and now let's talk about the deploy part. So this is where the complexity starts. So there are various ways to deploy an application. If you would like to deploy it on cloud or Kubernetes, local, hybrid, there are n number of ways, and MuleSoft provides some deployment targets. So let's see how we can deploy an API. So if you go to the hamburger button on the top again, here you have in the management center. So everything you manage for an API or to an API, it falls under management center. So in the management center, you have access management. All the users for the MuleSoft in your organization, you need to give access, right? Some people are developers, they just need access to dev environment. Some are admins, they just need only admin rights. So this kind of access management for this MuleSoft platform can be managed in this access management tab. All the security features, like who should have what access management. You're familiar, right? On that topic.
Yes.
And then you have the API manager. So how do you want to manage your API? So let's go into it. Let's just basically touch that. So in here you have API administrator, API groups, automated policies, client applications, custom policies, and Mule API analytics. So mainly managing an API means what an API should give and what it should restrict. Managing the API, like you can put policies for it as a security for that API, right? And for a policy, what policies MuleSoft provides. So suppose this American flights API is right now sitting here. I click that, and then once I go inside this, it gives you a lot of information: what is the version and what type, and the implementation URL and all of this. And you can also, if you go to the policies tab here, you can add policy. And right now, if you see here, there are many policies: JWT token, OAuth, JSON, basically. So there are so many policies that you can apply to your API as you need. So this is one place, API manager. But right now we are looking at deploying an API. So where do we deploy? It should be deployed on a runtime, right, where the API runs. So they named it as Anypoint Runtime Manager. In the Runtime Manager, if you go inside, this is the place where exactly you deploy an API. So tomorrow they'll interview will ask, where do you deploy your API? Then you have to say it's a Runtime Manager. Where do you manage your APIs? Then you have to say API Manager. Where do you design? Design center, right? Following me so far? Where do you publish? To the exchange.
Okay.
Simple or complex?
Simple. For like me, it's like complex right now, but simple.
Okay. Yeah, once you get used to, it's just a memory, new memory that is coming to you. Once you start adopting this, it's very easy. So in the runtime manager, you have this deploy application button here on the top. So once you click that, you have to give the name, and here are the deployment targets that MuleSoft provides. So you have a Cloud Hub and Cloud Hub 2.0. These are two. This means that you are deploying an API over the cloud that MuleSoft operates. Cloud Hub is a deployment target that MuleSoft controls, and this is Cloud Hub 1.0, or just Cloud Hub. This is the earlier version. Right now we are on Cloud Hub 2.0. So Cloud Hub 2.0 has its own features and things that you don't have to be worried right now, but we'll talk about it later in the next sessions. And hybrid is something, suppose an organization has databases and servers running on their local, and they want to use MuleSoft, right? Then they can still do that by using this hybrid version, that their local server can be connected to this MuleSoft Anypoint platform, and they can deploy the application and manage it. Cool.
Yeah.
For now, I've already deployed an application. And once you, and you know, just like your Java application, you have to get that jar file out. So once you run this MuleSoft project, it will create a jar file. So you right click here, go to that project location. Anyway, so if you go to your Anypoint, the place where this has been deployed, it's called Anypoint Studios Workspace Training for America. In the target folder, it will give you this jar file once it runs on your local. Okay, and you have to pick that jar file in the Anypoint platform. In the runtime manager, you have to choose upload the file and select that jar file, and then you can deploy. Or you can also publish that application over to the exchange and click on get from sandbox. Sandbox is like this environment name, like dev, test, and prod. Here I've named it as sandbox. I have two environments, design and sandbox. But normally in the real-time scenarios, dev, test, and prod, UAT, dev, UAT, prod, like that, right? You're familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how the environments are set up. So, and yeah, once you have that, there are various options here you are seeing. First comes the runtime, like use the edge release channel. This is the feature you don't have to worry right now, but it is for the cloud of 1.0. and runtime version. So right now MuleSoft is on 4.5 runtime version. So this runtime version we release, like there is a release chart, there is a release schedule. As per the schedule, every runtime will have the bug fixes or the security additions and a lot of things. But the main thing that you have to focus here in the runtime plane or the runtime manager is the application worker size. So how much size or how much memory you would like to allocate to that application. If it is 0.1 vcore, that comes with 500 MB of memory. zero point 0.2 vcores, 1 GB memory. 1 vcore, 1.5 GB. So we have few options here. You can allocate up to 16 vcores, 32 gigs of memory for this application. But this is only one application running on one server. If you want to have replicas, like more than one worker, then you have to select this worker option and change it to multiple workers replica count. So you can have up to 8 replicas of the same application.
Okay.
Make sense so far?
Yeah.
So that way you can select the workers, horizontal and vertical scaling, this is called. And then you have at the bottom, you have this automatically restart application when not responding. So once you have this option checked in, once application fails or having too many errors that it's out of memory or something like that, then it will automatically trigger a restart and clear the cache, and things will happen like that. You don't have to manually go and restart the application. If you check this option, it will automatically happen. And object store v2 is something where you want to use the object store, but object store, as you know, that is limited to the application's memory. If the application is restarted, that memory will be cleared. So if you use object store v2, you can persist these objects on, even the application restarts, the objects are still there. So it's like that. Use the persistence basically. Okay. Yeah. If you check this up, you use object store v2. And here are some of the properties. Suppose this application has properties like some of the properties, as you might be available and familiar, environment properties, all those you can put in here. And you can also encrypt those keys and values. So if you are using CloudUp 2.0 in the properties, suppose we have a key name as this, and once you click the protect button here, it will protect that value. Now it's not visible to anyone. You can't even undo that. The only way you can undo is you have to delete this property and create a new property with the same name, and then create that and then protect it. This is how you can protect in, and this is a feature in CloudUp 2.0. So don't worry all of this. I'm just showing you, walking through all the options available. Even in the logging, there are all this logging that you can put to this application to see how it performs and all. Now once you do all of this, the application will be deployed, right? And how does it look once an application is deployed? So once it's deployed, it's like it will be a green mark, but right now it's not running, so it's in red status. But don't worry, we are not going any in depth. So in the logs, here is a place where you can see the logs. No, I don't have any logs, but you can also download the logs with this button here. And if there are any schedulers, right now we have seen application with the listener as the source. But if there is a scheduler which has to be run at particular time, then we will put this scheduler in the source. So every application which has a trigger is called a source again. Some of the examples of the triggers are like schedulers, listeners, even the object stores, MQs. These are all the things that an application can start by, right? And you can give the frequency when to run. If you want to run every 10 minutes, then frequency is 10 and minutes is 10, like that. If you put this, then application will run accordingly. And you can also override them here in the schedulers tab. So this is how the application will be deployed. So we have seen the design, build, deploy. Now we'll look at manage, the last part. So how to manage an application? So to manage an application, as we have spoke earlier, we have API manager to apply policies to that API. And we also have API governance. That means, let's see how governance looks like. So create a profile, because each profile has its own governance criteria. You can define the rule set like which rules that you would like to put. I mean, being a developer role, talking about the governance will be a completely new topic. I know it will not be conducive for this session right now, so let's just skip that. But you can do governance and visualizer. Have you done any of these in your uh, past jobs?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, we don't do this. But being a MuleSoft developer, you would need to, because you have control. You are capable of doing so many things, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, visualizer is a place where we can you visualize all the APIs you have deployed so far on your platform, how they are linked, how the traffic is going, which API is causing the error. You can see all of those in this fashion, like you have seen here, hierarchical fashion, which is the front end application, which is the processing application, which is the back end application, how they are linking, how the traffic is going, which is performing more load, which is having more. All of this can be seen in this visualizer place. So just remember this, where you can see the data flowing in and visualize the data or visualize the API. It's in visualizer.
No.
And monitoring is for monitoring logs and all that. Monitoring is here, governance is here, and secrets manager is just like the secret key vault, right? In Java we'll be using, where you'll put the certs or some
Mm.
key. Yeah. So MuleSoft also has secrets manager, where you can take advantage of saving the keys and secrets. So you can create a secret group, and inside the group you can mention all the keys and values. So that is the overview of the entire life cycle of an API in the MuleSoft lens. Any questions so far, or any gaps that you felt?
No, it's similar to Java only, like design, build, deploy, you test it, and again, do a monitoring of that. So it's similar to MuleSoft, so it shouldn't be much critical. But yeah, while doing implementation, maybe I may find some, benefit of doubts, but no, that's good.
Okay, great. So you're familiar now, right? You when someone says API manager, you know what they're talking about. When someone says runtime manager, you know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, this is the overview. If you don't have any other questions, I think we can conclude this session.
yeah. I'm good with it. Thank you.